Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Randall Herrera. A couple of days ago I had a photo shoot that I arranged after work. It's not something I normally do, but in an effort to just keep doing new projects and more photo sessions and that kind of thing, I'm just kind of trying to push myself to not be lazy. Now there will be a little bit more video and photo samples after this little bit here, but a couple of things I wanted to talk. Some is directly Fuji related, some is not. But in any case, I've been really trying to push myself to just take on more portrait sessions, even if they may not be at the most convenient times. And, you know, often laziness gets in the way. I try to kind of set up everything for my most convenient time, which is my weekends. Unfortunately, my weekends aren't the majority of people's convenient time. And, you know, a lot of times it's just like, oh, but it's after work, I'm going to be tired. And just lately, I'm just kind of like, just do it, and I've never regretted it. You know, I always go out there, and it always ends up being totally worth it. Maybe a little bit before it's time for the session, I'm feeling like I'm tired. I've already worked 9 hours, but once I'm there, it's just a whole different mindset. I guess the adrenaline kicks in. You just start having fun, especially if you can get a good model, somebody who's fun to work with, somebody who's comfortable in front of the camera. It doesn't always happen, but luckily for me, I've always been lucky with that. You know what I'm saying? I haven't had any issues in that sense. So yeah, I'm hoping to continue to bring more content, more practice for me, you know, shooting portraits and just practicing working with models and editing, just everything, composition, the ideas, all of that is something that I'm really trying to push myself to do. Even if it's not at my most convenient time. So one of the things I wanted to discuss was the 50 millimeter. So I had the 56 f1.2 before, and I did end up returning it. It had some issues with it. I don't know if I got a bad copy or not, but I ended up returning it, and I ended up replacing it with the 50 millimeter f2. I was afraid that I was gonna miss the f1.2, but what I'm finding for myself is that I'm not shooting wide open as much as I used to. It seems like the more I do portraits, the less wide open I end up shooting, or at least I should say the less of that super shallow depth of field, you know, situation that I'm looking for. I shoot at f2 all the time, but I'm usually at a higher f-stop. I'm usually like at 5.6, 7.1. For portraits, I find that me personally, the more I shoot, the more I'm looking to have everything sharp. 99% of the time, I want just the model to be totally in focus from the front to the rear, just everything in focus. Now, there are those moments where I do want, you know, a shallow depth of field, a really shallow depth of field. But I don't know that it's, I think I'd rather keep, for the moment, I'm not totally decided yet, but I think I'd rather keep the 50 f2 at I think it's about half, it's actually less than half the price of the 56 1.2. But what about when I want that? Because sometimes for artistic purposes, sometimes I do want a very shallow depth of field where only that eyeball is in focus and everything else is just kind of melted away, right? So one of the options I'm considering is Samyang or Rokinon, same company, or Midicon, I think it's called, or these other, manual focus lenses that go to like f1.4, f1.2, 0.95, like really, they're manual focus. But I think for the amount of pictures that I personally want with that effect, I think manual focus is okay, especially on a mirrorless camera like Fuji, where you've got focus peaking and the focus peaking that actually works well. I think that's the option I'm going to go. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to get probably the 85 millimeter Rokinon what is it, 1.4, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's probably the option that I'm going to try. I've already tried the 56 1.2, and I'm not saying it was a bad lens. It was a perfectly good lens, but I just wasn't really using it at f1.2. So why pay the $1,000 when I've got this? That's a very sharp lens, the 50 f2. I'm very satisfied with it as far as image quality, sharpness, detail, color rendition, all that. I'm very satisfied with it. It's less than half the price. If I remember correctly, it was like $450, give or take. I might be a little bit off there. So I think that's what I'm going to be doing. At least that's the way I'm going to be trying to do it and see if that works out. The other thing I wanted to discuss was originally when I got the Fuji XT2, it's got so that the rear screen, when you're in portrait mode, right, turned over, you can flip the screen out forward or to you, and that's a feature, to be honest, that in the beginning, when I first saw it, before I even got the camera, I thought, gimmicky, kind of like whatever, like it's not something I would ever use, and I just totally dismissed it. Didn't give it any sort of credit for being worth anything. And when I first got the camera, I didn't really use it, but I've been using it a lot more lately, especially as at least I like to think that I'm growing as a photographer, or as a portrait photographer, or I like to call myself a photographer, as a hobbyist, enthusiast, whatever I am. As I grow and I'm trying to find different angles and maybe, kind of step out of the basic just head-on shots, but lower angles, that kind of thing. That little flip of the screen in portrait mode is really coming in handy. I'm really enjoying that part. I'm really liking it. It's actually become like one of my favorite little extras on the Fuji XT2. As far as the grip, well, I'm still working on actually using it. Don't get me wrong, it's on the camera. I'm just having such a hard time, I just take the camera and I'm just doing this. I've never owned a grip before. This is the first time I own a grip on a camera. I've never been a fan of making my camera bigger, but with the Fuji, it actually adds performance. And so that's why, to me, it was a must. And aside from the fact that with mirrorless cameras, you have, batteries run a little bit faster. But I've had mirrorless camera before, and it was never an issue to me. I don't consider it a big deal. But in any case, yeah, I'm struggling to use the grip properly. But I'm just kind of one of those things to remind myself. Anyways, that's it for this video. I'm gonna just show you a little bit more of the portrait session that we had. The video was shot, the video of the portrait session was shot with a camera, with a cell phone. So that's why, I'm sure you're seeing the really bad, the really grainy quality. But considering that it was shot with a phone and it was pretty dark out there, nighttime, I think it actually came out pretty good. My girlfriend, we met up. Originally it wasn't planned. Usually when we do these things, my girlfriend comes with me and she helps me with the models and the little small details that the clothing, keeping clothing straight, flyaways, that kind of stuff that she's better, with paying attention to that kind of detail. She usually helps me out with that. We usually bring the Canon 80D to do the video. She wasn't actually going to be there at that session, but then at the last minute she was able to make it. But there was no Canon 80D available at that time, so she just had her cell phone, and I mean, at that point we were just doing the photo session, and then she was just like, she just took out her cell phone, started doing the video, which I'm glad she did, because at least it gives, you know, this particular video just a little extra content. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the video as well as the photos. Subscribe if you guys haven't subscribed, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.